Welcome back, everybody. Songbird and Flare Networks. It's a moment we've all been waiting for. You guessed it. We'll get into it. BitBoy doubles down, and I think you're going to like it. He's got some powerful remarks to put out here. You want to hear it. And Charles Gasparino tweet brings some real insight to what may be coming for crypto. And let me tell you, I think this is much bigger than just crypto and stable coins and regulation. And we're going to get into that angle as well, because we're going to look at the President's Working Group. And by the way, we have an update for you that just came out not long ago on the SEC versus Ripple. And this time, Ripple is looking to seal some documents. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at BackUpBradley, and everything that we're talking about here today. I want to remind everybody before we get into this today, and I'm not doing the numbers right this second, but I just want to remind everybody before we get started. I went over this and I put this out on Twitter, and we did cover this a day or so ago on the channel, but I think it's good to just keep our minds around the fact that this is the in-camera review letters that were submitted by the SEC that the judge requested. And this is just one example of many that we made that reflect that Mrs. Sapanik at the SEC at the time, at the head of the digital division, handwritten notes from 2016 meeting with Joseph Lubin from Consensus and the Brooklyn Project discussed Ethereum and certain digital assets. Now, what's important about that is that we have to remember that the SEC is literally consulting with Joseph Lubin, Andrew Keys, and other people from Ethereum about other digital assets that they're actually competitors to. No wonder they came up with the notion that Ethereum was the only one that really gets a pass. I mean, this is just remarkable. But listen, there's more information here. Let's go ahead and take a look at this from James K. Filan just a short time ago. It says here, Ripple files a motion to seal exhibits regarding motion to compel answers to interrogatories identifying the theory of how the Howey test applies to transactions in XRP over the last 8 years. So this is Ripple filing the motion to seal these exhibits. And when we look into this, this is what we see here. And I'm just going to give you this first part because I think it kind of shapes up to what's going on. We'll surmise this in a second. But pursuant to Rule 3 of this court's individual practices in paragraph 15 of the protective order entered into this case, defendant Ripple Labs respectfully submits this letter motion to seal limited excerpts of 2 exhibits that the SEC filed under seal in support of its September 8, 2021 letter. Ripple's proposed redactions are reflected in Exhibits 1 and 2. It says here, these Exhibits B and C are discovery materials filed with the court in connection with the discovery-related disputes. It cites the case that they wanted, United States versus Smith. It says Ripple's objections and responses to the SEC's third set of interrogatories, however you want to say it, and Exhibit C is Ripple's objection and responses to the SEC's second set of interrogatories. It says here, these materials, which have been designated confidential under the protective order, are not judicial documents and therefore are not entitled to a presumption of public access. And then it cites some more stuff here. It says, holding the documents merely filed in order to advise the court and tee up certain discovery disputes between the parties that required judicial intervention were not judicial documents. So I think we have it. We'll have to find out what the judge decides to do about this motion to seal. But it would appear that, and look, I don't know what these things are, but it wouldn't be uncommon for a business or a company to say, hey, we don't want the rest of the industry to see our business practices, right? If it's related to the case and it's pertinent, fine. But if it's not, we need to keep that stuff in-house. And I kind of get that for competitive reasons, just like the fact that we know Ethereum consulted and got in bed with the SEC, and lo and behold, they get a pass and Ripple's in court. So there's that. Here's a reminder right here. Ripple's still on the board, ladies and gentlemen, at link2.com. And you know what? So is Uphold, and so is Link2 itself, and Kraken, and so is Zipline, and all these other products. But there's not a lot left. It goes very, very quick. I can tell you this. So make sure if you're going to get it, get it. And if you don't know if you're accredited, it's a very quick and easy process to find out. So make sure you check it out. All right, this is a moment we've been waiting for right here, ladies and gentlemen. Hot damn, congratulations, Hugo Filion, Flare Networks. Retweet this, and I spelled retweet wrong in this, but nevertheless, worse things have happened. But shout out to them. I know they have gone through a lot. I know we've gone back and forth with the whole idea of trying to understand tax implications. And really, I guess at the end of the day, there's nothing to do but have all of this be launched between Songbird and Spark tokens and find out how it's going to shake out, right? Because we don't really know, and they've made it clear they don't really know. But at the end of the day, I'm still excited about the network and everything that's going on. So looking at this, it says putting Songbird in flight. Songbird has now launched, and the Songbird token has been distributed to all addresses. Now, I think all addresses, are either us or the exchanges that are participating, and we'll have to wait to see if they in fact are going to participate. So technically what this means is that describes the path that the network will take over the coming weeks and month, which is the observation mode. So let's quickly look at this so we all know what's going on. Songbird is currently in observation mode. The FTSO contracts will be deployed during observation mode, and the FTSO system will commence. Observation mode is intended to allow exchanges, FTSO data providers, and developers to deploy on the network in a safe manner. During this period, the network may be rolled back and or redeployed from Genesis. Succinctly, this means node peering with the network is achieved through whitelists, and it has a link here. You can check all of that out. Flare reserves the right to roll back and or take down the network and restart from Genesis exchanges. We strongly advise not making Songbird token available for sale or purchase during this time. So you don't have to wonder if it's dropping in your account tonight or tomorrow morning or whatever. You don't have to worry about that because that's not the moment we're in. But we're getting closer, and that's what they're telling us. So congratulations to them. I'm excited to see this really get off the ground and get going. And it looks like we just took a huge step closer to that happening. Now, this is Bond Crypt here, who says he personally his personal views all along that they are all in bed together, talking about the market regulators and Ripple and all of this notion of where the lawsuit is. And I don't know what to make of that, but it looks like there's a lot of adversity to me between the market regulators and Ripple. So I'm going to go with that. But nevertheless, everybody's got their own point of view here, and I certainly welcome it. Talking about timing and synchronicity, it's all just around the corner. And listen to what BitBoy says during this in one of his shows here. And listen to what he says about the case itself and what he believes in this. And I think it's worth hearing here. Check it out.
I think that you're completely wrong because I think you're believing that Ripple and the SEC are on separate sides.
So, elaborate. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
They're on the same side.
I'd love to hear.
Who do you think Gary Gensler is? Who do you think Lizard Man Gary Gensler is?
Oh, he's probably big. He's probably big invested in XRP. To be honest with you,
he's a
Goldman Sachs MIT teacher.
Boom. There you go. He is as thick with the banking cartel as you can get. Yep. And the next 4 to 5 years are going to show how thick Ripple is inside the banking cartel.
That's true.
All of this, I love what TJ said yesterday about the Coinbase thing, which is it's all political theater. That's what this is. They're really all on the same side. So I think that this thing is going to break loose very soon because that was part of the plan the whole time.
pretty remarkable comments. And I got to say, obviously very speculative comments, right? Nevertheless, and very cynical. But I tell you, there are moments throughout this thing that I know we all feel like there's this big theater going on. But I do believe ultimately at the end of the day, no matter what you subscribe to, and it doesn't matter, you guys know my thoughts for a long time here about this as well. In some respects, I do believe there's a large part of theater happening here, but it's costing everybody a lot of money for this show to go on. I can tell you that. And that's one thing, no matter how you feel about this, it's accurate. So when we look at that, I have to say, there's some other news here that's really captivating as well. Earlier, we heard Charles Gasparino, who has just been on fire getting into this space and really bringing and shining a light on the inconsistency from the SEC. And just briefly, let me say, I'm not into tearing things, projects, or people down. I just want to see a level playing field. I want to see Ripple and XRP get the same fair shot that Ethereum got. Because we know that they certainly got a fair shot. They got more than a fair shot, didn't they? I mean, we have enough evidence to know that that's not even anyone's speculation at this point. But listen to what he says here. Based on his reporting, he thinks that the SEC enforcement case against Ripple brought by Jay Clayton was less about his current work now, where he is in the private sector, and more about him deferring to the SEC staff and bringing the case to protect regulatory turf versus the CFTC on cryptocurrency. If you go back into 2018, if you weren't in the space, very quickly, federal judge ruled that all virtual currencies were to be regulated as commodities by the CFTC back in 2018. So this kind of falls in line with what his remarks are here about the SEC looking to protect their regulatory turf by going after crypto after that ruling of the judge, because this was obviously some time later. However, to add to that, he said, Clayton was known to bow to staff concerns doesn't mean it's a good case. In fact, protecting turf is a symptom of the haphazard way cryptocurrencies and blockchain is being regulated and why we need consistency immediately, or we will get our clocks cleaned on this technology by China. And I tell you something, this Charles Gasparino is absolutely dead on the money here, because that is the real issue. We can get down into the mud here about this market regulator and this agency and this one and that one and who knew what when and the free passes and all of this. But you know what's going on while this is happening? China is advancing every day on implementing the digital yuan. How about that one? Keeping your eye on the ball. And I believe that's what Charles Gasparino is really doing here by getting all of us to keep our eye on the ball and not get down in the weeds when it comes to this case. And I think it's a great perspective from Charles. Looking here, he made a mention in one of the clips he was in yesterday that we played, where he talked about maybe we need a separate agency to really oversee crypto to get both of these, more importantly, the SEC back in its lane. And then he cited the president's working group on financial markets to discuss crypto and stablecoins, because we also heard Gary Gensler testify just the other day. And when we heard him testify, what did he tell us? He told Senator Toomey that he even believes that stablecoins may be a security. And Senator Toomey damn near went nuts. He's like, it doesn't fit the Howey test. And you don't have to be a lawyer, which he's not, to know that it doesn't fit inside the Howey test. And Gary Gensler wouldn't pull back from that position. Although he tried to be passive about it and not really fully commit, he definitely leaned into the idea to Senator Toomey that stablecoins, in his purview, are in fact securities. So now with that being said, I want to show you who's a part of this president's working group. It's Janet Yellen from the Treasury, Jerome Powell from the Federal Reserve, Gary Gensler from the SEC, Rostin Benham, now the acting chairman of the Commodities Futures Trade Commission, who's now been moved to the chairman here, I believe been nominated, if not already put in, Jelena McWilliams, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which is the FDIC, Michael Hugh from the acting comptroller of currency, which is a former position from Brian Brooks, Brooks, Randall Quarles, here Vice President of Supervision for Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, and J. Nellie Liang, Undersecretary for Domestic Finance for the U.S. Department of Treasury. Now, this is really them in this particular area talking to discuss stablecoins, because this was back in July when we covered this, but it was the most recent thing I have from the working group. However, we do have something else that came out from Bloomberg. And this is something that just came out, yesterday here. So Treasury officials have identified what they believe are the most urgent risks posed by Tether and other stable coins as they read recommendations for stricter oversight of cryptocurrencies. Remember, Tether, a digital dollar, a private stable coin that represents a digital dollar. There's been a lot of talk about Tether not being backed properly and all these things. We're not going to get into that. But what we understand is that digital dollars, albeit private or not, are the on and off ramp to the digital world. That's why that is so important. So when we look at the article itself, and I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I will tell you that this is quite interesting, the language in this. Treasury officials have identified what they believe are the most urgent risks posed by Tether and other stablecoins as they ready recommendations for stricter oversight of cryptocurrencies. Ensuring investors can reliably move money in and out of tokens is a top concern for officials crafting a policy framework set to be released in the coming weeks. Did you hear that? Ensuring investors can reliably move money in and out of tokens is a top concern for officials crafting a policy framework set to be released in the coming weeks. According to people with knowledge of the matter who declined to be named because the work isn't complete, they're also worried that the widespread fire sale runs on crypto assets could threaten financial stability and certain stablecoins could scale up dangerously fast, the people said. I tell you, I would not be surprised, and the article goes on, and it's a great article, but what I'm going to tell you is that there's a lot of people talking about the conventional stock market having a huge correction, 30, 40%, some people say even more. Would you be surprised? Because I wouldn't. If they come out with some regulations that get this thing going very quickly, and then the correction in the stock market happens, and instead of telling you everything's wrong and bad things are happening, they tell you that the money's just simply leaving the stock market for this new asset class. Just a thought. Here's another thought. This ought to speed things up. This is Wrath of Conman, and you should be following him if you're not. DTCC, which is a Depository Trust Clearing Corporation, which handles $1.2 or $1.6 quadrillion worth of settlement of derivatives, by the way, is to move into the development phase of a prototype settlement platform based on distributed ledger technology. To be clear, he says, and he's right to say so, it does not say XRP Ledger or XRP or even Ripple. And I want to make that clear, and that he's making that clear, but they are talking about using distributed ledger technology and more efficient settlement paths and protocols, right? Platforms. But with that being said, I do remember back in the day in 2015, Donald Donahue was with Ripple Labs, and I don't know if he's still there or not. I don't believe he is, but if he is, shout out to him wherever he is. But previously, Donald Donahue served as the COO and the CEO of guess where? The Depository Clearing Corporation, the DTCC, leading the DTCC's effort to help stabilize the financial system through the crisis of 07-08. Formed the merger of the Depository Trust Company and the National Securities Clearing Corporation. DTCC is the principal infrastructure organization supporting post-trade activities for the United States securities and derivatives market, processing transactions worth more than $1.6 quadrillion annually. In this capacity, Donahue also worked in the U.S. Treasury Department as well. Which leads us here, which is the Dodd-Frank Act. And that was a very, very important piece of legislation after the the last collapse we had, right? 07, 08. And that brought on the ability, one of the things brought on the ability to declare things that were financial market utilities or systemically important financial market infrastructure. And what do we have in Congress right now? A U.S. infrastructure bill. Now, don't we? Now, I'm speculating. But it would make sense to me that if we're going to submit a 1.5 or 3.5 trillion, whatever goes through, for the infrastructure bill, it's not going to be just about schools, roads, and bridges this time. Because why? I'll tell you why. Because we saw them set the narrative with GameStop, where there's market manipulation, and it's able to be done with retail investors through social media platforms now, right? Then what else did we see? Cyber attacks on the oil, right? Then we saw a cyber attack on the largest meat producer. Get the narrative? The market infrastructure, the digital not the digital market infrastructure, but the current infrastructure, which for most part, when you get layer 1, layer 2 down into it, isn't even digital anymore. It's like Swift, right? It's old. The technology is old. Legacy systems are old. They're antiquated and they're vulnerable. And that's the message in the narrative that I'm seeing here. And that's what brings me back to the Treasury, and in the coming weeks, releasing some kind of policy framework for all of us to see, and using the president's working group to get this done. And maybe that's why Gary Gensler didn't want to go so hard as to be adamant about stablecoins being securities, but maybe it's a discussion they've already had, and he didn't want to lean too far in open public testimony, but he didn't want to say the wrong thing either. So this is getting pretty damn interesting, ladies and gentlemen. And I tell you, I do believe something is going to happen when the infrastructure bill goes through, and it will be more than schools, roads, and bridges. Now, looking here very quickly, Gary Gensler, if you're not aware, during his tenure at the CFTC, also worked closely with the Obama administration during the United States Congress. Regulators transformed $400 trillion worth of financial derivatives market that were at the center of the financial crisis. Gensler began leading the Obama administration effort to start policing the Wild West of finance. Well, you just heard him say that the other day in his testimony on the Capitol Hill. The murky market over-counter derivatives. When the Treasury Department released draft legislation to bring regulatory oversight to the swaps market, Gensler sent a letter to Congress arguing that the proposal didn't go far enough. Excuse me, had to sneeze there. By the spring of 2010, the momentum in Congress was toward Gensler's vision of derivatives oversight. Congress passed comprehensive reforms as part of the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act of 2010. Listen to this. After the passage of the Dodd-Frank Act, which is what brought on SIFMUs and the ability to deem things systemically important, like I believe the XRP ledger could be, right? Okay. So with that in mind, looking at this here, Gensler led the CFTC's effort to write the rules required to regulate the swap markets, or even RippleNet could be systemically important, right? He oversaw the agency as it wrote 68 new rules, orders, and guidances as it reached extended from $35 trillion future market to a $400 trillion swaps market. Under Gensler's bipartisan commission, reached unanimous votes to approve more than 70% of the agency's rulemaking. More than 70% of the agency's rulemaking. By the time Gensler left the CFTC in 2014, the agency was near completion of the rule-writing process to implement the Dodd-Frank Act. This guy is in the SEC now and used to be in the CFTC, and I believe it's no accident that he's there, and I believe he's there on that side of the fence to do exactly what he did in his role for the CFTC at the time of the last collapse there. My speculation, but I don't think this is an accident at all, that he is now at the SEC knowing what his real background at the CFTC was. That's going to do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe, and make sure you share with somebody you know. It means something for you guys to come here and spend this time, and I don't take it for granted one single bit. I appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure you check out all the links in the description box and the comment section. By the way, the only thing better than buying crypto is buying tax-free crypto, ladies and gentlemen. And guess what? If you filed a tax extension, you got about 1 month, a little less. And if you're not sure what to do, reach out to crypto tax fixer Clinton Donnelly at DonnellyTaxLaw.com. Make sure you check them out. I'll catch all of you on the next one.